As urbanization increases, global solid waste generation is accelerating. In the 1900s, the world produced fewer than 300,000 tons of garbage per day. As the years go by, and as the world's population has grown and become more urban, waste production has risen tenfold. By 2025, it will double again. Garbage is being generated faster than any other environmental pollutants, including greenhouse gases. Solid waste management is one of the greatest costs to municipal budgets and is a problem that needs to be addressed now. This video will focus on strategies for sustainable waste diversion.
With Canada's growing waste generation per capita, landfill space is in short supply, with many landfills reaching their capacity. Canada produces about 30 million tons of municipal solid waste annually. This is about 4 pounds of waste per person. Based on the limited capacity of landfills in many regions of Canada, a shortage of landfill space is expected, which will increase the pressure for sustainable waste management practices. So now, let's take a look at what happens when we throw something away. The first step is collection. The waste hauler will drive a large truck to pick up trash on the side of your curb. The truck will then go to a transfer station, where it will deliver the trash, recyclables, and other materials into different compartments before transferring them off to their final destination. After the truck is done here, the different wastes will follow their own separate paths. After all the waste reaches the transfer station, it gets loaded into larger vehicles. These larger vehicles will transport the waste to the end point of disposal in either a landfill, waste energy plant, hazardous waste facility, or for recycling. However, this process is not as simple as it looks, as most of the waste does not get sorted properly and will probably end up in the landfill. When waste enters the landfill, it is buried 16 meters underground and is lined with a polyethylene layer. There can be up to 8 layers of garbage stacked on top of each other, with a layer of soil in between. Once an area is filled in, trees, shrubs, and grass can be planted over it, so you wouldn't necessarily know it was a landfill site. The decomposition of organic waste in landfills will produce a gas composed primarily of methane and carbon dioxide, 2 greenhouse gases which contribute to climate change. As the waste decomposes, the plastic lining disintegrates, and this landfill gas will seep into the soil and cause environmental problems. So why should we care? The environmental problems caused by landfills are numerous. While there are many problems, the negative effects are placed into 2 distinct categories: atmospheric effects and hydrologic effects. When looking at atmospheric effects, according to the EPA, the methane produced by the rotting organic matter in unmanaged landfills is 20 times more effective than carbon dioxide at trapping heat from the sun. Not only does methane get produced by the various forms of rotting organic matter that find their way into the landfills, but household cleaning chemicals often make their way here as well. The mixture of chemicals like bleach and ammonia in landfills can produce toxic gases that can significantly impact the quality of air. When looking at hydrologic effects, landfills also create a toxic soup of industrial and home cleaning chemicals. People throw away everything from industrial solvents to household cleaners in landfills, which accumulate and mix over time. A more immediate concern is for the welfare of the wildlife that encounters these chemicals, and it is common for animals to suffer painful deaths from this contamination. Chemicals and electronic waste is also a large contributor to water quality issues near landfills. These chemicals accumulate and are washed away periodically by rain, potentially dragging them toward municipal water supplies. Until our society stops viewing materials as disposable and sees it as a cyclical and a valuable resource, energy and material will continually be wasted. A sense of urgency to change this perspective is emerging for solid waste management because municipal solid waste has increased by 40% between 1980 and 1997, and it is predicted to increase by a further 40% by 2020. The purpose of our research is to explore how effective waste management programs are at McMaster University. With McMaster being one of the top schools in Canada, it is important that all students and faculty do their part to contribute to a sustainable campus. This project will therefore focus on the analysis of waste management in Mills Memorial Library and determine different factors that affect waste management. Our thesis focused specifically on Mills as it accounts for the largest amount of waste production on campus, estimated to produce 645,264 kilograms annually. So, to put this into perspective, picture a Honda Civic that weighs approximately 1,143 kilograms. This would mean that the garbage that Mills Library produces alone in 1 year is equivalent to approximately 565 Honda Civics. In order to figure out where the weaknesses are with regards to the waste system in Mills, we decided to conduct a series of waste audits to see what the biggest contaminant was. So when doing so, this is typically what we saw in each bin. Students were pretty good at recycling paper. The problem started to arise when we looked at the plastic and the garbage bins. As you can see, one of the biggest problems we had, and what the biggest contaminant was coffee cups. So what's the problem with coffee cups? Aren't they recyclable? Well, sure. Coffee cups are made of paper, but their interior is coated with a plastic or wax lining that keeps its contents from leaking, to control temperature, and to increase durability. This coating is very difficult to separate from the paper cup, making recycling coffee cups incredibly difficult and involves a specialized process. Disposable coffee cup lids are accepted into the Blue Bin program as long as they are not black or made of compostable plastic. As we can see, Tim Hortons lids are number 6 polystyrene, which means that they can be recycled. And when we look at the coffee cup sleeve, it can also be recycled just like any other paper or cardboard. That being said, the proper way to dispose of your empty coffee cup is to put the cup in the garbage, the lid in the plastic bin, and the sleeve in the paper bin.
In order to facilitate the ease of disposing coffee cups or any other garbage, one aspect of our project focused on infrastructure. We wanted to create some sort of control, so first, we made sure that all 3 bins were placed beside each other. Then, we ensured that each bin had the proper signage. When looking at the infrastructure, we wanted to understand the specific traffic flows with regards to each floor of the library, and identify areas with the most and least amount of use, and then find a way to quantify them. For simplicity, the following example will show the infrastructure improvements on the first floor of Mills Memorial Library. When quantifying the traffic, we used 3 classifications: high, medium, and low, as seen in the image. Next, we mapped out the current arrangement of the bins in the library. The legend on the left shows which bins represent paper, plastic, and garbage. It is evident when looking at the original arrangement that there are flaws, specifically the fact that many of the bins are not in their triple configuration, being paper, plastic, and garbage. This encourages students to put all of their garbage into one receptacle regardless of what it is. To combat this problem, we rearranged the current bins on each floor, promoting the triple configuration. The data that was obtained in the waste audit post-movement showed that this change in configuration resulted in a greater amount of waste diversion. When analyzing the data prior to making any changes, we wanted to look at each bin and what percent of their contents belonged there, essentially looking at what percent of the bin was contaminated. After moving the bins and ensuring that they were in the triple configuration, we collected the same data and looked at the percent contamination as well. When comparing both sets of graphs to see if there is any difference in how much contamination there is, we can see that in the garbage bin, after the changes of infrastructure, the contamination decreased from 47% to 36%, and the same thing for plastic, from 36% to 21%. However, there was an increase in the contamination in the paper bin. This is uncontrollable because there will always be a degree of contamination no matter how much we try to prevent it.
So now that everything is in place, the next section of our project will focus on educating the students. Public participation is at the center of the investigation, since the success of waste reduction is reliant on the participation of an individual. This will allow for a deeper understanding of the reasons why some students do not fully participate in the current waste management programs in place, and will provide new information for a design of a more effective program that can be implemented and help in the reduction of waste generated at Mills Library. One method of education that we chose to implement was through an educational poster. By having the poster on top of these bins, we thought this was the best way to educate students and faculty members. The way that the poster is laid out is based on each separate bin. So for the paper bin, it would show the most common objects that can be placed here, as well as objects that should not be placed in this bin. The same thing is shown for the plastic bin and the garbage bin. Based on our previous assessments on how coffee cups are the biggest contaminant, we really wanted to emphasize the fact by placing Tim Hortons logos so that students will become more aware of how to properly dispose of a coffee cup. In order to evaluate the change in students' behavior, we carried out 3 important tasks. We recorded the data, analyzed it, and of course educated the students on the facts. During the recording stage, we implemented these posters around Mills Library, on the television screens, and on every single bin on all 6 floors of the library. And then we conducted a series of waste audits to record any changes in contamination. As I mentioned previously, we wanted to focus more on the plastic and the garbage bin. And as you can see, after the implementation of our poster, there are more coffee cups being disposed of in the garbage bin versus the plastic bin. So now we need to analyze the data that we collected. We need to have a baseline of what everything was prior to any implementation of educational components, and then compare it to the data we collected after the implementation of the posters. So again, looking specifically at the percent of contamination after we implemented the posters, we saw a large reduction in contamination in the garbage and the paper bin, with a 12% reduction in the garbage and a 10% reduction in the paper. We can also note that there was a small reduction in the plastic bin, but by only a small amount. And the reason for this is that it's hard to control students' behavior all the time, as not everyone looks at the posters. Now that we've seen a reduction in contamination, we wanted to make sure that this change in behavior wasn't a coincidence, so we conducted another educational campaign that would reach out to students and get their personal feedback. So we situated ourselves inside Mills Library with the 3 posters up, this, that, and the other. And we had 2 computers, one showing the poster and the other having a survey on it. The questions that we were trying to answer from students was basically how familiar are students with the poster, have they noticed them around the library, and how effective have they been?
From our survey, with a sample size of 50 people, 73.3% of the students have noticed the signs, and the other 26.7% have not noticed the signs. Of those who noticed them, we asked to rank the poster on how educative they have been. From the results, the majority of the students found that the signs were able to change some of their habits on waste disposal. Then, we wanted to see if the signs had actually changed their knowledge. Well, the majority of students, 61.4%, said yes. The other 38.6% said no. Following this question, we wanted to see if they were effective in educating them or if people already knew about these practices. The results from the survey showed that the posters were effective in the education. After we collected our data, we found this to be a great opportunity to demonstrate proper disposal of a coffee cup. We gave students the coffee cup and asked them to place each item in front of the sign where they thought it should go. Surprisingly, most students were able to find out where each component belonged. Most of the feedback that we got from students was the fact that the plastic bin had an opening shaped like a circle, which automatically made students think only cups go in there. To fix this, we ordered a new set of bins that would remediate this problem. By customizing the bins to have a rectangular lid, it would allow students to properly recycle other things that belong in the bin, such as takeout containers or pizza boxes. Not only are these bins better for waste management, they are more ergonomic for custodial staff and a lot cheaper than other bins, saving almost double.
In conclusion, it is not possible to create a perfect system where 100% of waste can be diverted from landfills. But with our efforts, we have been able to minimize the amount of contamination in each waste bin and better educate students and faculty, which will in turn help with the overall waste management system and improve our environment positively.